What is going on, world? Welcome back once again. My name is Zach Novak and this is Zach Novak Plays Games. In today's video, we're going to be going over some basic information regarding the Rise of Iron. Now, a lot of this information a lot of people do know, but then there is a lot of people out there that still don't actually know this information. So, roll the intro, let's get into this, and I hope you enjoy. Alrighty, so in today's video, we're going to be covering the Rise of Iron. Now, this in itself is not a lot of information that's really broad and vast, but this is a lot of information in itself that a lot of people still didn't know. So let's start off with one of the big things that a lot of people probably did know. Rise of Iron. It's actually going to be the fourth major expansion for Bungie's popular sci-fi shooter. Now, it may actually not be the biggest, but Bungie has new plans to add new campaign missions, maps, gears, and a lot of other things for existing players, alongside a brand new social area for parties to meet up and plan their new excursion. Now, that in itself is Felwinter's Peak. This is something a lot of people do know about. Felwinter's Peak. What is it? Well, it's home of the Iron Lords. But what does that actually state? The Iron Lords are gone and the only one that's there is, well, Saladin. That actually isn't true. Now, all the actual Iron Lords in themselves have a statue representing who they were and what they did, standing in the actual Hall of Iron Lords. So, this in itself is an area where we'll be able to go into and actually interact with certain statues if we have a correlating artifact. Now, an artifact. What is that? Well, these new items being added to Destiny are 8 new artifacts throughout the time of Rise of Iron, each of which has its own special ability for use in combat. Bungie has confirmed that custom matches are actually on the way, and inside custom matches you'll be able to test out each of these artifacts, as well as on top of that you'll be able to earn Grimoire score. So, if you're one of these people that really wants to actually get a higher Grimoire score by killing enough Titans, killing enough Warlocks, killing enough Hunters, being a Hunter and killing enough people, then get a few friends together, go ahead, jump into some private matches and get yourself some more Grimoire, because that is pretty freaking awesome. Now, what else is actually on table? Well, we've got Archon's Forge. Now, what is Archon's Forge? Well, Archon's Forge is a big flaming fortress. Well, no, actually. Going into detail, the Plaguelands. Now, the Plaguelands is home to a place called the Archon's Forge, where it's Destiny's closest version to a classic Horde mode in Gears of War or Halo or something like that. Waves of fallen enemies spawn out of domes inside the forge, and players will have to fend off scattering enemies quickly. If the waves can be cleared fast enough, the boss will spawn to cap off the experience. Defeating that boss will drop loot specific to Archon's Forge, which, much like the April's update of the Challenger the Eldest mode, can now drop at the highest light level gear. So, that in itself means that if you are on your way to the max light cap, you go through and do some Archon's Forge, you are definitely going to get some gear that's actually going to equate you closer to that highest light level, that obtainable light level of 385 that we know of so far, that is going to be so freaking juicy. Now, we do know that by going through and actually completing the hard mode raid is another way you can actually get endgame gear. But if you are a solo player or you don't actually have a 6-man team to go through and do the raid, then get your 3-man team or even your 5-man team and split it up. Do 3-man on one time, 2-man on another time. If the 2-man doesn't work, switch out a 3rd one. You know, just try out all different combinations. The Archon's Forge is definitely going to be something that a lot of people really want to go in and actually compete in. Now, in itself, it is a risk-reward element. Now, players who die and respawn during the Archon's Forge will actually be kicked out to the front gate, which is, it's locked, so you can't get back in. The only way of actually getting around the locked gate is either to wait for a friend or a helpful stranger to revive you within the forge. Therefore, it might be a good idea to actually take a fire team, as I said, a few actual friends, join up with a random group and go in and do it. It was a lot like Court of Oryx. When you started Court of Oryx originally, you had to get the 3rd tier actual boss. You needed a few people to actually beat him, usually. Now not so much, but again, this is the way it's actually going to go. When we actually first get access to the Plaguelands, we can go ahead and discover the Archon's Forge immediately. However, going through and actually completing in the Archon's Forge as a solo player is gonna be very challenging. So again, get your team together, make sure you've gone around and killed a few Siva randoms so you can actually get certain items from them, then use those items to actually like sacrifice at the terminus, whatever it's called kind of thing, so you can get access to the Archon's Forge, to the arena where the greatest battles happen, where you in yourself can be a Viking Lord, if you've got the Iron Lord gear on, of course. But I digress. Let's get back to more information. As I did mention, the new raid. Now that in itself is actually called Wrath of the Machine, which is pretty poised to be a brutal challenge. Now that in itself means that maximum light level for endgame players is now capped at 385 and will increase to 400 on the hard versions of the raid, Strikes and Archon Forge. But in itself, there is something that I'm wondering about, is what actually is gonna happen with the Wrath of the Machine gear. Are we gonna have a standard actual gear and then hard mode gear, or is it just gonna be the same? Not too sure, pretty interested in that. Would be pretty awesome if there is actual hard mode gear that looks different, stuff that we haven't actually seen so far. Pretty sure that's most likely the way it's gonna be, just because Bungie isn't always just like, hey look, here's everything. It's pretty much just like, hey look, this stuff looks cool. We're not showing you the awesome stuff yet. So that in turn brings me into something else. Now this, I don't actually know 100% sure, but an artifact known as the Blade of Radagast. Now this in itself is in the game at the moment, but I am honestly thinking, if we are to become Viking Lords, like heroes of the Norse, then usually they'd have swords, not guns, right? And these swords wouldn't really resemble the swords that we have now, because these swords we have now are like really not futuristic, but very slimline. They don't look very medieval. So possibly, could we, maybe, potentially be getting new swords? Now Deej did actually say in an interview, there is new swords. Oh my god. So yes, straight from the word of me, straight from the mouth of Deej, he confirmed it. There is going to be new swords. We don't know what they actually are, whether they're legendary, whether they're exotic, but Bife did a video where he actually went through and discussed all different ideas about it. Now I'll have the link for that in the description down below. Actually, I have an annotation on the screen right now. Go click it and go watch his video if you want. You can actually see what he says about the swords. It's a lot more information than I can give you, but let's just associate it with King Arthur and the Round Table, Sword in the Stone, and Excalibur. So that is pretty freaking awesome. But something as well about artifacts is the stat specific items that improve your Guardian's maximum capabilities, while also increasing your maximum light level throughout the Rise of Iron, can be obtained from a new actual NPC vendor called Tyra Khan. Will also have specific missions that focus on the Iron Lords. So that in itself goes to state there is a new actual quest giver and a new NPC, I guess, person you can buy things from. Tyra Khan. Tyra Khan, everyone. Give her a round of applause. She's pretty freaking awesome. Giving us some awesome artifacts, which I really like. That's pretty freaking awesome. Now, one big thing is Rise of Iron enhanced? Is it visually more pretty? You know? Is it beautiful? Are the graphics actually enhanced? Considering we have dropped 360 in PlayStation 3, possibly. The graphics, could they be getting better? Well, from what we've seen, it does actually seem like they are slightly more crisp. There's a little bit more drop shadow on certain things, which just seems really freaking awesome. There's just so many different actual editing techniques that have gone through to make this look seriously freaking beautiful. Now that, I'm hyped. But I'm also freaking hyped about this whole thing called Supremacy, which pretty much is like, yeah, lot like a Call of Duty style of thing, but in itself it's Destiny, and because we are space magic wizards, flying Titan guys that can drop bubbles and use Fists of Panic, as well as these hunters that can shoot a flaming pistol at people. That's cool, by the way. I'm really happy for what they've actually worked out for actual character progression for the moment. I'm really wondering if there is going to be any chance of new subclasses actually coming in with Destiny 2. We don't know. It's going to most likely happen where our characters are completely reset, or we start out with new characters and stuff like that. Maybe our progression actually gets carried over, we don't know. But I'm babbling again because, well, I don't know, I babble, and that's kind of just what happens. Well, let's just go back into the information. Diving straight into it, we've got SRL, the Sparrow Racing League. Now this is coming back in December. The difference here is we don't know whether Sparrow Racing League will actually stay forever. Now, they have stated that if the community really does want this as a standalone type of game mode, then definitely Bungie will actually implement it into the game. The Sparrow Racing League isn't just going to be what it was before. There is 2 new maps, the old maps are actually updated, and there's most likely going to be brand new gear and sparrows, as well as horns, which I'm really freaking hyped about. Horns! Anyway, getting into this, there is something that I myself have been really kind of down about for the last few months, and that's been the old strikes. Now I go through and do legacy strikes, at least 3 a day, just, I don't know, it's fun. Now the one that I always usually get is Summoning Pits, and Summoning Pits is seriously easy by itself. But with this actual expansion of Rise of Iron, the Devil's Lair and the Summoning Pits are both going to be updated and revamped with this new look. These in themselves that we know of, the Summoning Pits is going to be called the Wretched Eye, and that in itself so far it seems like it's a bit of a challenge. Now a lot of actual big YouTubers have said that it's very much reminiscent of bosses at the moment, where you only really have to just kind of stay away from him, get a few shots on him, and you'll be alright. But now there is also this ogre. We don't actually know everything about this ogre. We've seen people actually complete the actual strike and stuff like that, but again, it's a lot different when you go through and actually do it yourself. Now back onto the big actual thing, Supremacy, which does kind of associate with Sparrow Racing League because again, it's a form of Crucible mode. But I'm digressing. Floating Gardens, Last Exit and Skyline. They are going to be new added maps. They're going to be added alongside Supremacy, a new Crucible game which is inspired, as said, of Call of Duty's Kill Confirmed. Players can score points by collecting crests dropped by fallen enemies, earning extra score on top of their kills, which in turn is pretty freaking awesome. But another thing that's pretty freaking awesome is Foundries. Now the Gunsmith is getting a change. There is a bit of an update happening to the Gunsmith. We don't really know exactly if he's going to have new weapons and stuff like that as of yet, but it does seem like he might. He most likely will. In my eyes, I think he will. Factions. They in themselves are also getting a change up. Now it's not a very large change up, but it's all new gear. Now that in itself is pretty big, but again, a lot of the actual gear that is in game for the Rise of Iron has been reskinned, and the textures and stuff taken from the actual Taken King, just because most of it was actually in turn in their eyes going to be used for the Rise of Iron. Same with Infusion, but that's pretty much it. This has been Zach Novak. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video. Hopefully some of this information you didn't know. However, most of this information you probably did know. If you did enjoy this video, however, click a like down below. If you did enjoy this video, however, click that like button down below. Do all that good stuff. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you're most hyped about for the Rise of Iron. Tell me in your own words, what is it that you are going to do first with the Rise of Iron. But once again, this has been Zach Novak. Do all that good stuff, share this video around, subscribe for more Rise of Iron info. I'm going to be having that video going up once it actually finishes rendering about, the Archon's Forge, which every time I look over that screen, I'm just like, damn you take so long. Anyway, I'm babbling. Rise of Iron, Archon's Forge video coming in probably the next 6 hours, 8 hours. Hopefully, if YouTube doesn't mess up on me with this video and then the next video. But anyway, this has been Zach Novak. I keep saying that. Do all that good stuff down below, and I'll be cheering like Kieran if he was Ed Sheeran. But until next time, this is Zach Novak, signing off. Peace out.